أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulil kareem, amma ba'd. So alhamdulillah, last week we covered the mustahab timings of salah. When we began the discussion of salah, the first thing we spoke about was the timings of salah. So in the timings of salah, there's different rulings in regards to it. Each salat has its own specific time when it comes in, and a certain time when the time for the salat expires. So we discussed that. That was the first discussion. The discussion after that was about the prohibited times to pray salah. We discussed how many times were there in the day where it's prohibited? Three times, right? So we have sunrise. What's that after sunrise? Istiwa, when the sun is at its highest point, and then after that, sunset. So those are the three prohibited times. And what were the two makruh times?
After Fajr?
After Fajr.
And after completing Fajr prayer?
After you finish your Fajr prayer.
And after completing Asr prayer.
Sunset is makruh. Until sunrise is makruh. And obviously the sunrise is the prohibited time, so you have to wait for about 10 minutes. So that was the first makruh time. What was the second makruh time?
Sunset. After Asr.
After Asr, yes. Right, after Asr, basically until the prohibited time begins. And then from the prohibited time until sunset. And then Maghrib Salah starts. And then we discussed the mustahab timings of Salah. For each Salah, there's a certain time which is the most virtuous time to pray the Salah. So we discussed it for each of the 5 Salah. So what did we discuss for Fajr? Which time is mustahab for Fajr? There's just one word I used, but then there was some explanation in regards to that word. If anybody can remember. Isfar, right? Isfar means when there is a considerable amount of light, when there is light in the horizon. And how did we determine this? How did they calculate this? They said if you could pray your Fajr, how many verses can you read in it?
Was it 40?
About 40 to 50 verses you could read in your Fajr Salah. And then, what did we discuss?
Repeat it.
If you have to repeat it, something happens, and you could repeat the Salat with the same amount of verses.
And still have time left over.
You could still have time left. So I give an example. So if it takes you 15 minutes to pray your Fajr while reading 40 verses, and then if something were to happen, you realize that you didn't have wudu, so you made wudu, you repeated the Salat, you could pray the same Salat with the same amount of verses. So 15 minutes for your Fajr, if you have to repeat it, that's another 15 minutes, and there's still time left, say 5-10 minutes. So 35-40 minutes before sunrise, that's the ideal time for Fajr, time of Isfar, right? So what we discussed about Zuhr. Zuhr, it differs throughout the year, which is the mustahab time for Zuhr, right? In winter, what is mustahab for Zuhr? You delay it, or
Early.
you pray it early, right? In the beginning of the time. So what about during the summer?
You delay it.
You delay it until the
The
extreme heat cools down a little bit, right? So what do we discuss for Asr? Do you delay it, or what do you do? Do you pray it early? For Asr Salah.
When the shade becomes double.
That's when the Asr Salah comes in, yes, but should you pray it earlier in the beginning time? For Dhuhr, there's a difference, right? In the winter, you pray it in the beginning time, but in the summer, you delay it. But what about for Asr?
It's always early.
You delay it. We discussed about Asr, you delay it, but not too long, right? Because there's a certain time where it becomes makruh for you to pray Asr. So you delay it for such amount of time, where if you were to pray Nafil, obviously it's makruh to pray any Nafil after Asr, right? But just to calculate the time, hypothetically speaking, if you were to pray Nafil, you could pray Nafil after you pray your Asr. So you delay it that amount, right? Not too much where it ends up in the makruh time.
Right.
So what about Maghrib? Maghrib, right? It's simple. Early, right? Sunset. Immediately you pray, right? After Azan is given, you immediately start the Salah. So what about Isha Salah?
Winter early and summer early and winter
Yes, the
early.
summer you prayed early because it comes in late.
Yeah.
Right? Isha Salah comes in late and it will keep coming in late until like about 10. Sometimes the Salat is at like 10 o'clock. So by that time you prayed early, you don't delay it. But in the winter, since the nights are long, then you delay the Isha. So it's mustahab to delay the Isha Salah. So today we're going to be talking about the fara'id of Salah. So altogether there are 13 fara'id of Salah. So there are 13 fara'id of Salah. 7 of them are outside of Salah. Meaning, before you start the Salah, there are 7 things that are necessary in order for the prayer to be valid. And there are 6 inside of the Salah. So today we'll be discussing the 7 that are outside, right? The 6 that are inside, we'll discuss that at a later time. So the 7 that are outside, the first thing, which is obvious, yes, clean body, which means well, you have to have wudu. We discussed wudu in detail, right? How many fara'id are there in wudu? How many acts are fardh in wudu?
4
4, right? What was one?
is the washing of the face,
Washing the face. Which parts of the face?
the entire top to bottom, and yeah.
From the hairline, right? Until the chin. If you, right, if a person doesn't have a beard, then the bottom of the chin. If they have the beard, then from wherever the beard starts. So that was lengthwise. What about widthwise? From one earlobe to the other earlobe, right? And the side in between the ear and the sideburn, the side also has to be washed. Remember, that's very important. So that was the first one, washing the face. What's the second one? Up until elbows.
Up and including the elbows.
Including the elbows, right? So wash the arms up until the elbows, and you include the elbow as well, right? What was after that? Masa. How much is necessary?
1/4.
1/4 of the head, a quarter of the head, right? If the quarter of the head, it doesn't anywhere, right? It could be from the back, it could be from the side, but it has to be a quarter of the head. That's the fardh amount, right? So what was the last one? 1/4.
Feet.
The feet.
Up until the ankles.
The ankles, right? Yes. So that was the wudu part. Okay.
Masa, when we do it's a practice in India, Pakistan, they do like this. And that's a sunnah. Or,
Yeah, it is mentioned. The fuqaha, they mentioned the statement of Aisha radiallahu anha, where she saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam how he did masa. I discussed it when we went over it in wudu.
Okay.
Where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would take his middle finger, his ring finger, and his pinky.
Okay.
He would join them for both hands.
Okay.
So what he would do was just with the fingers, right?
Okay.
Not including the palm, but just with the fingers, he would do masa of the top of the head, and then the side of the head, he would use his palms. So he would use these 3 fingers,
Coming
do masa like this, and then with the side, he would come to the front. And then with the index finger, he would do masa of the inside of the ear, and with the thumb, he would do the masa of the outside of the ear. So that's what was reported by Aisha radiallahu anha.
And then the back of the neck was not part of that. That's mustahab.
No, that's mustahab.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2. Of course, clean clothes. We discussed this in istinja, right? Oh, that's not istinja, but najasa.
Can I say the place, clean place?
Yeah. That's also, I'm gonna mention that next. Right. So clean clothes. You can't have impurities on your clothes. We discussed about impurities, right? Where there were 2 types. You guys remember the 2 types of impurities? The rulings were different in regards to it.
So major and minor.
So there was major and minor. In regards to, you could say, for clothes or for certain areas.
Was it ghaliza you're talking about?
Yes, the ghaliza, right? Ghaliza, you could say the heavy impurity, and khafifa was the light impurity, right? So you discussed the ruling for that. So for if you have najasat ghaliza, heavy impurity, how much is forgiven? Or you can pray salat with that. If it's a dirham, then you can't pray with it. If it's less than a dirham, then you can pray with it, right? So what about khafifa? Which is the light impurity. How much? We discussed a quarter of the limb, right? A quarter of, for example, if I have najasat khafifa and it's on my sleeve, if less than a quarter of my sleeve has the najasat, then I can pray with it. If a quarter of my sleeve has the najasat on it, then I can't pray with that clothing, right? So clean clothes, right? We discussed that whole mentioned that whole thing in the najasat. Clean place, right?
Right.
Again, same thing in regards to the clean clothes, the najasat, the ghaliza and khafifa, that'll apply over here for the clean place.
So, Maulana, when you say clean place, that means that technically you don't need a janamaz to read namaz, like, because
No.
so like for example, dirt is considered a pure thing, right?
Yes.
So you can pray directly on top of the dirt.
Yes, if you know for sure that there's no impurity on this, then you can pray on it. It's fine. Even at home, you could pray on your home carpet facing the qibla. Okay. The fourth one was the time must be right.
Right.
This is easy, right? I can't pray Fajr right now because the time of Fajr didn't come in, right? So the time of Salat comes in, then that's when you can pray that certain specific Salah. Right?
Direction of the Qibla.
Yeah, that's the next point. Facing the Qibla. Again, with facing the Qibla, there is a 45-degree leeway for that. So it's not necessary that you have to directly face the Qibla, right? So say for example, if that corner of that wall is the Qibla, and I'm facing over here, my salat will still count even though I'm not facing directly there. So there's a 45-degree leeway for that, right? So if I'm facing this way, then I'm not facing the Qibla, right? So that's more than 45 degrees, right? That's the thing about the facing the Qibla. Another thing, you can't have your chest turned away from the Qibla, that'll break your salah. So if you're praying salat, if the Qibla is this way, and then I turn my chest away like this, right? So my salat will break since my chest is away from the Qibla.
If somebody adjusts you a little bit in the middle of the salat and puts you like facing directly towards the qibla, will that affect your prayer?
No. And also, another thing to mention, sometimes if we're outside, we don't know the direction of the Qibla. Sometimes we might check on our phone, or we might estimate using the sun.
Right.
So if we're praying our salat, and then we find out that the Qibla is actually not in this direction, somebody tells us, for example, that that's not the direction of the Qibla. The Qibla is that way. So you don't have to break your salat, you could just turn around and face the Qibla while you're praying your salat. It's not necessary for you to break your salat.
It happened, somebody rotated me once like this.
Yeah.
So it's
That's fine, that's fine. And if you find out that, okay, this is actually isn't the Qibla, it's that way, then you just turn towards the Qibla.
Some local person actually rotated me like 90 degrees like this.
That's fine, that's fine. As long as you don't do,
I
we'll
was
discuss it
uncomfortable, but
in
later I found that
those things that break the salat,
Yeah.
we'll discuss it over there in detail.
And for tri-state area, we are praying 58 degrees northeast.
Northeast, yes, that's where we face. Okay, number 6. This is very important. Covered awra. What is the awra for the man?
From the belly button to the knees.
Yes, from the navel until the knee, including the knees, right? So this must be covered in salah, right? Some people don't give this importance. Sometimes when people go for ruku or they go into sajda, their awra is uncovered. If your awra, if a quarter of it is uncovered for the duration, for the amount of time it takes to say subhanallah 3 times, your salat breaks, right? So what is the awra? What is considered to be a quarter of a limb? So the scholar mentioned, for example, like the thigh, that is considered to be 1 limb, right? And then from the waist up until the belly button, right? Even the waist, or you could say from the pubic area until the belly button, that is considered to be 1 limb, right? So this amount of space is considered to be one limb.
Yeah.
So if a quarter of this amount of space is uncovered in ruku, in sajda, for the amount of time it takes to say subhanallah 3 times, your salat breaks. So you have to be very careful, because a lot of people are not careful about this. So many times I've seen this where people's awra is uncovered in ruku, and the entire ruku is uncovered, or the entire sajda is uncovered. Their salat breaks and they don't even know that their salat breaks.
Mahasab, I heard the person standing behind that person, their salat also breaks. Is that correct?
No. That's not it. Their salat doesn't break. That's not true. The person whose awrah is uncovered, his salat breaks. Right? So we need to keep this in mind, right? And we should also tell other people as well. When we see it happening, we should, obviously with wisdom, you tell them.
Or
Don't
it's
put
like
up
a limb on part of the limb, right? Or
Yes, a quarter of the limb. Covered awrah, and also the last one is niyyah, intention. You have the intention for salat. It's not necessary to say the intention verbally, out loud. You can make the intention in your heart. Making the intention in the heart suffices. Sometimes you're standing next to somebody and you could hear them verbally making the intention. It takes them like a minute to make the intention. You're saying, I'm praying 4 rakat dhuhr salat behind the imam. It's not necessary for you to do it verbally. You could just make it in your heart. For fardh, you have to make sure that you specify that it's fardh. Right? So you can't just come and say, I'm praying 4 rakat and make that intention in your heart. No, you have to say, I'm praying 4 rakats fardh. For Zuhr, for example. Right?
When you come into the masjid for Jama'ah, so you have intentions that I'll pray Jama'at behind. Still you have to, when you stand?
The intention is made from beforehand, then you could just come and you could stand. Like you already, obviously you should know what you're doing.
Yes.
You should know that, okay, prior to starting your salat, you should know, okay, I'm beginning my 4 fardh
Yes.
for Zuhr, for example. You should know that, right? These are the 7 fara'id for salat. Again, clean body, meaning you should have the wudu. We discussed wudu in detail. Number 2, clean clothes. So what amount of impurity does not allow you to pray salat? We've covered that in detail as well. Same thing in regards to the clean place. Before the time must be right. That's very easy to understand. 5, facing the qibla. 6, covered awrah, right? Very important.
Yes.
You need to give importance to this and teach it to others. A lot of people don't know this. And number 7, the niyyah, making the intention. We discussed it's not necessary to make a verbal intention. Next week, we'll discuss the 6 fara'id inside the salah. Anybody have any questions regarding this? No? Then inshallah, Jazakallah khair, may Allah reward you brothers for coming. Making mujahada despite the virus. You guys still came.
Assalamu alaikum.